High above the windswept moors and darksome woods, the village of Hirot is under siege. Each night, as the sun sinks beneath the western mountains and the candles burn low, a devil beast stalks the village streets, unleashing its savage fury on the living. From warlord to pauper, crone to child, no one is safe. Doom of the Savage Kings is a first-level module for Dungeon Crawl Classics, written by Harley Stroh. Unlike a zero-level funnel, this adventure is not explicitly designed as a deadly meat grinder, but it is certainly a dangerous affair. On first inspection, Doom of the Savage Kings did not inspire me immensely, but the module slowly proved its quality during gameplay. The setting has a grim Nordic feel to it. The village of Hirot is forlorn and doomed, and this tone is reflected in the NPCs and the descriptions of the place. These descriptions are evocative, sinister, and mournful. Commendably, there are enough strange occurrences described to maintain an unfamiliar weirdness without straying too much into the gonzo. The adventure begins with the characters happening upon a mob of peasants and soldiers, driving a young woman bound and distressed towards some ancient standing stones. Her destiny is to be sacrificed to appease a demonic hound which plagues the local village. This introduction draws the characters instantly into the adventure, as they will likely consider how best to deal with the situation. Their response affects the relationship with others in the village, potentially making an enemy of the Jarl or the girl's father straight away. While the introduction scene gets the players quickly into the action, I found it a little difficult to roleplay the situation, and manage the results in a way that would allow the adventure to continue. If the players insult or attack the Jarl and his men, their entrance into the village and continuation with the adventure is not guaranteed. The same goes if they free the girl and reveal this fact to the Jarl and the villagers. The best way to resolve the situation is for the characters to wait until nightfall and combat the beast before freeing the girl and stealthily returning her to her father without the Jarl's knowledge. Perhaps it is because I found this part of the adventure difficult to plausibly roleplay, but I didn't much care for this introduction. The introduction is an exception though, as the rest of the role-playing situations went very well in my game. There are a variety of interesting characters, including a condescending Jarl and his weaseling seer, a fanatical priest convinced that the end is nigh, and a group of dishonest ruffians set on extracting coin from the adventurers. Speaking with villagers and discovering the story of the demon beast and the savage kings was very interesting, and the grim tone of the adventure can be established. A little guidance may be required to steer the characters to the Flophouse, which is the best place to discover information about the tomb, and while the players can roll for random rumours, the local bard and the ruffians know most of the rumours together, resulting in some info dumps and contradictory information for the players to sift through. Meeting the local ne'er-do-wells is also the perfect opportunity for the referee to relieve the characters of some of their coins. The main section of the adventure is the tomb of the Savage King Ulfhjönar, though it is entirely possible for the players to complete the adventure without ever setting foot in the tomb. In typical DCC style, the tomb is very deadly. The traps and enemies are likely to take out at least one or two PCs, though none feel too unfair, save for the final trap, which seems like a TPK waiting to happen. Having said that, the traps generally avoid the faults seen in early D&D in that they are not save or die and are telegraphed beforehand, mostly. Speaking of character deaths in the tomb, it is worth mentioning that this adventure is designed for 6 to 12 first-level characters. While a player is expected to have multiple characters under their control in a funnel, I find it strange and inconvenient for the first-level adventure. I would presume that most players encountering this adventure will be using first-level characters for the first time, and since the complexity of rules greatly multiplies after 0 level, controlling multiple characters will be a burden for new players. This is, of course, overcome if the group has 6 or more players, but such groups are quite uncommon in my experience. Most of the DCC modules that I've looked at are for 8 to 10 characters, and I'm not sure how this can be sustained in a campaign. Should funnels be run between adventures to replenish parties, or should new characters of the appropriate level be added between adventures? Such large groups are easier to manage in basic D&D as there are fewer abilities to deal with, but in DCC these party sizes just seem too large. It seems to me that having a large number of characters is required, as the adventure is quite deadly, but do bear in mind this fact if you plan to run Doom of the Savage Kings as your first module after a funnel. The module features great monsters, each with interesting and unexpected traits. The monsters feel very dangerous but are well balanced for the party. The ghouls with snakes inside are cool and add to the feeling of horror in the tomb. The water snake is interesting, but is basically an unkillable plot device. And the wolf is one of the least interesting enemies in combat at least, aside from its ability to turn into black smoke. Here I find one minor issue with the module, in that some information is omitted which should be left in. The Hound of Hirot is listed as having demon traits, though these traits are not written in the module. My guess is that these traits are dark vision and half damage from non-magical weapons as a type 1 demon. But I feel that this information could have easily been included in the module and, in the case of damage reduction, is fairly important for encounters against the Hound. After leaving the tomb, the characters are ambushed by a group of mercenaries working for the Jarl. I really like the inclusion of this encounter, which adds an element of mystery and increases the player's suspicion about certain groups and individuals within Hirot. The encounter does risk eliminating the characters as they are in a weakened state, but remember the morale rules and it may not be too deadly. During my group's playthrough, the players were already wary of the Jarl, his seer, and the village ne'er-do-wells, suspecting that any of them could be directly involved in the creation of the Hound. This ambush added to their suspicions, yet didn't reveal exactly who was behind the attack. With a single encounter, the story had become much more intriguing. There are a bunch of extra encounters possible in the marsh as the characters travel towards the Hound's lair, but I skipped these during my playthrough. The scale of the map is relatively small, meaning that travel to the Wolf's lair will take 2 hours at the most, with a 40% chance of an encounter each hour. While the encounters are mostly interesting and descriptive, I felt they were unnecessary, and certainly random rolls are not required. If you wish to add a little interest to this travel section, then simply choose one of the random encounters. I'm somewhat confused about the overland map, which is vaguely gridded to 100 yards per square, but with various features that are not to scale. As mentioned, travel to either the tomb or the fens will take an hour or two, even if difficult terrain is taken into account. Yet the random encounter with swamp jackals states that they will follow the PCs for days. I feel it best to ignore travel and random encounters and to simply move players to the next beat of action. If you do wish to make something of the travel sequences, perhaps expand the scale of the map. One final gripe that I have is with the various saves and checks used within the module. On many occasions, strength checks are used to open things with high DCs, and there is no indication that anything bad will happen on a failed roll, so one presumes that the players may continue to roll until the task is successful. In other places, multiple saves and checks are required to deal with the hazards, such as the water, pit trap and spikes at the beginning of the tomb. With these large parties of characters all rolling multiple saves for each challenge, it does become fairly tedious. I would prefer something more simplified to deal with these situations. Like most DCC modules, the art is evocative and the maps are great, but not very suitable for player use or VTT. This module can provide the starting point for a longer adventure, but probably not the foundation for a campaign. I ran the module comfortably within 3 sessions, including almost all of the content. The overland section to the fens could be expanded, as could the conflict with the Jarl. The module is deliberately situated in an isolated area, somewhat restricting the development of the plot into future adventures. Overall, I found this to be a very enjoyable adventure to run. There is a good mix of combat, exploration, and meaningful role-playing, mixed with a sinister and strange tone. I would highly recommend this module, though as noted in my review, make sure you spend some time preparing, and if this is your first time playing DCC above 0 level, help your players manage multiple characters. The tone of the module can be somewhat melancholy, has a hint of horror, but is decidedly Dungeon Crawl Classics, so will likely devolve into a combination of tragedy and farce. Like other DCC modules, this adventure can be fairly easily converted to other old school systems, and there are a bunch of ideas here that you can easily add to your own campaign. Have you ever played this module? If so, let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, or even pick up one of my books from Drive-Thru RPG. And as always, thanks for watching.